Will he like me when we meet? Will the shy and quiet guy he's going to see be the guy that he's imagined me to be? Will he like me? Will he like the man he sees? If he doesn't, will he know enough to know that there's more to me than I may always show? Will he like me? Will he know that there's a world of love waiting to warm him? How I'm hoping that his eyes and ears won't misinform him. Will he like me? Who can say? Oh, this evening seems a million years away. It's insanity to worry so all day. I'll try not to. Will he like me? He's just got to.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Green Room. That beautiful rendition of a song from She Loves Me is by one of our guests this afternoon. We had planned to have him on last week, and we played a selection from his wonderful album. But today we finally get to talk to him in person. And that is the title track from his Will He Like Me? An extraordinary collection of theater music that has a wonderful storyline, and I think you'll agree with me. It's groundbreaking, and it is a breathtaking group of songs. So please welcome my first guest, Mr. Philip Chaffin.
Hey there.
Hello from Palm Springs with that beautiful white Christmas tree.
It's the first time I've had a Christmas tree in about 15 years now, because usually I'm on the road or up in Bristol sometimes.
Yeah.
I never had a tree.
We shared that year. I commuted back and forth. So I had a Christmas tree in both places during that time. But anyway, let me bring on my other two guests who you may or may not know, but you will by the end of the 90 minutes, and we'll get to talking. My next guest is an award-winning director, and coincidentally was involved as part of the creative team of the last Broadway revival of She Loves Me. Please welcome Stephen Nachamie. Hello. And then we have a beautiful, I think you're muted, Stephen. There you go. You have a beautiful skyline of New York behind you. So thank you for that. Now, my third guest today is a dear friend of mine who I have been privileged to share the stage with, and he's a Broadway performer who has performed regionally and off-Broadway as well, and on television, and he's just a mensch. Everybody loves him, and he just also happens to be a birthday boy today. So please say hello and happy birthday to James Van Treuren.
Hi, everybody.
See, you guys, now look at this. You couldn't ask for more a diverse background. Jimmy, you look like you're sitting there waiting for Santa Claus around the hearth, and so
I think I look more like Alistair Sims or something like that in what were the old great performances of years ago. Remember?
Alistair Sims. But you look like Alistair Sim too. In
yeah, right.
Yes. Well, what we do when we start the program every week is we play a little game, a little round robin of how we met. How do we know each other? Just to get the ball rolling. And your answer may not be the same as mine. My collective memory may be going, or it could be that we ran into each other many years before. But it's always fun to find out. Why don't you go first, Philip?
I think it's from Bristol, from BRT. Where you just got finished doing Ragtime, right? And then you did the summer music. How was it Christmas?
Yeah, we did a Christmas one.
Okay.
And I think I was about to do Ragtime. It was something like that.
Okay.
But you have done so many of the musicals at BRT. I
They
think
kept me very busy.
more than any other performer have done. You're almost always in musicals, and your wonderful voice. And of course, I knew of your reputation before that from your many recordings, and we'll get into that because this is an area that I think our viewers will be especially interested in. Okay, Stephen, how did we find each other, so to speak?
So we kept kind of circling around each other back in the day when I was performing at Equity, and then through Surflight Friends, and then at many meetings and holiday parties at SDC, at the Society of Stage Directors and Choreographers, with your fabulous Christmas jackets and spirit.
I usually had a couple of drinks by then, and we were all taking drunk selfies, and we're going to miss that party this year, but what can I tell you? I think we've also crossed paths at places like Gretna Theater. I think we both were directing at the same season or something like that. So yes, that's you. My memory is the same as yours, I believe. And Jimmy, we've known each other since the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
I think so. Probably before we actually ever worked with each other, we just knew each other from auditions and things like that. I think. Yeah. But the first job, I was not in the cast that I worked with you on. I was a rehearsal stage manager. I'm going to see if you remember. It was Westchester Broadway Theater.
And was it La Cage?
It was La Mancha, right before La Cage. I was the rehearsal stage manager, and you were in the show. I only worked for like 3 weeks or something like that on the production. It also helped with health insurance and stuff like that. Absolutely. And I did that for the La Cage you did there too. And then, of course, subsequently, we played opposite each other in La Cage. So
it was inevitable that we would, yes.
It took about 20 years, but we did it.
Yeah.
Well, not 20 years, maybe 15 years.
Well, it's funny that it was La Mancha because I thought it was La Cage, but I guess it was. That was the production where...
That was before it, right? That was
my first show there. And I was Dr. Carrasco, and 4 weeks into the run, I took over as Don Quixote.
Yeah.
And that was my first of 13 shows there, but I think you've done more shows at W.
I've done 15 over the years. We're starting in the old theater. Yeah, it's very sad that they've closed.
Yeah.
A real heartbreaker, but a lot of great memories and a lot of great people work there.
We're all going to miss it. It's been a topic of much discussion. I don't know if you guys had ever worked at Westchester Broadway Theater, but we've all been in mourning for a month now.
It really kind of felt like there was a death in the family.
Yeah, it was incredible the way they would put the shows together in 9 days or 10 days, and we always pulled it off. I think having directed 2 shows there, I tell you, it was much scarier for a director than it was for an actor, and it was scary to be an actor doing that, but we always managed to pull it off.
Yeah.
So Philip, what I wanted to tell everyone before we get in the weeds too much is that I am, as you all know, a passionate collector of musical theater recordings, and the cast album is how I educated myself, how I got to where I am right now, and wherever that is. It's my dining room, actually. But when the cast albums came about in the 40s with Jack Kapp at Decca Records, and then it evolved into the great cast albums of the 50s and 60s at Columbia and RCA and Capitol, the golden age of the cast album. we collected all of them. And when the divergence of popular music and theater music started to happen, a lot of the big labels lost interest in recording cast albums, and it was up to independent producers to pick up the slack. And Philip and his partner Tommy Krasker have established a wonderful label that if I told you all of the cast albums that we have, thanks to these guys, you would not believe it. Broadway, off-Broadway, and very much important, the studio cast albums of shows that have never been recorded. So we want to find out a little bit how that all came about. How did you guys decide to do this?
Well, in 2000, Tommy and I had been together for about 10 years, and he had been producing records for Audra and Mandy, and but we just never worked together. So I always wanted to do a big band. I always wanted to sing with a big band. So we put together a CD of big band songs from the movies, and we wanted to sell it, and our accountant was like, well, you have to form a company. And so we formed a company, and then we did another show with Susanna Moross Targent, whose father is Jerome Moross, and we did it at we did it downtown, and we went into the recording studio, and she went to sell it to different labels, and nobody was interested. And we were like, well, we have a label, so make it, and we put it out. And then people just started coming to us with ideas, and people were Tommy had known different artists, and they were like, well, I always wanted to do a CD. And then we did the Maury Yeston songbook. Maury was Tommy's professor at school, and Tommy did the original 9, was the accompanist on the original 9, music director kind of thing. And he knew all these songs that Maury had put in the trunk, and was like, this one people should hear, this one should hear. And so we put it together. And then after that happened, 9 came, and Maury was like, you should put a bid in for that musical, just see what happens. And so we were like, okay, we've never done this before. We had, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 CDs on our label at the time. We put it in, and one morning they called us and said, you're doing it. And we were like, oh, okay. I mean, we'd never done anything with that huge before. So we were like, okay, this is great. So once we did 9, then other people started coming to us, and we just started. That's pretty much how we became, as Jessica Molaskey called us, we were the reluctant moguls. It was kind of like, oh, I guess we run a record label now. Well,
your catalog is huge and so varied, and we owe a huge debt of gratitude. People like me who collect every studio cast album, and the shows like The Adding Machine and The Minister's Wife. The studio cast recording of Fine and Dandy, it was so invaluable. Last year, I did a staged reading of a play with music based on the development of Kay Swift's Fine and Dandy. And of course, we used the recording, and Aaron Gandy, who was your musical director, was part of our team. And if it weren't for that recording, I don't know that we would have had this play inspired. So it's a wonderful thing. And I want to talk about your album in a little bit too. But you mentioned Maury Yeston. Jimmy, I think you're muted again. There you are. Okay.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. I was muted for a minute.
I don't know. We've got gremlins. We had gremlins last week when Philip couldn't appear at all because his internet was down. But you did the first production of Maury?
No, not the first at the New York area premiere, which was at Westchester Broadway Theater in 1992. So it was the first time it was seen in the New York area. And it's also, most of that cast also did the recording, which is the Phantom recording. That play has has done a lot for me over the years. I've done 6 different productions of it, and I've probably played every single role in that play except for the Phantom and the Count. I've played everybody else. I played the cops. I played the Minister of Culture. I've been in the ensemble. I played Inspector Ledoux, and of course, I've also played the Phantom's pop. So
Yeah.
it's a great, it's a wonderful show to do.
Well, I got to do that with you just for a few weeks.
That's right. Yes.
You were wonderful in that role.
Well, thank you.
Touching, and it was about time you got to play it, because
Well, and I just did it again. I mean, their last, they did 4 different productions of Phantom at Westchester Broadway Theater over the years. I was the only cast member that was in all 4 of them, I believe. Yes, I was. And the last one ended in January of 2000. I mean, about 2019, and I played Gerard in that one as well. So that was and it was a lovely production, directed by Tom Polo.
Yes, who was involved with so many of them as well. And you also did Death Takes a Holiday.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
One of the few productions outside of New York that has been done, and
it was a lovely, lovely production. I'm very proud to be a part of it. It was at the Arvada Center in Arvada, which is near Boulder, Denver area. We had a beautiful cast. There were only 3 of us from New York. The rest of the cast were all Denver actors who were all fabulous. It was a lovely show, and the music is gorgeous, and it was really very well received, and it was a lot of fun to do. Really,
we recorded that.
You did?
Yeah, we did that off-Broadway.
Ah, yeah.
No,
beautiful music.
PS Classics roster, you will be astounded how many
Well, it's interesting, David, real quickly. Yesterday I was cleaning, because this is what we do during the pandemic, because we do like deep cleaning, and I pulled out all of my recordings, and I stacked them all together, like I actually filed them, and I went through all my cast recordings, and one of them that popped out that was in beautiful condition was 9. And I'm looking at it, and of course not knowing that you had done it, but there you go. That's what's racing through my head as you were talking about it.
Well, you talk about what we do, clean our apartments,
cook, bake,
plan projects that have not been able to happen yet. But I'm looking at Stephen now, and I think I know that he must have done something like the rest of us have gained weight. Stephen, you look like you have gone on a health regimen.
Well, I don't mean to be a commercial here, but I finally went on Noom. I couldn't stick to anything. I couldn't do Whole30, so I did Noom. And my boyfriend here has been helping me cook and keep on calories. And I've been trying to work out. It's now that I'm a captive audience, I have to do it. Not running around.
Well, it's inspiring, because I'm still terrified to go to the gym, but that's the other.
Oh, I work out at home. So I don't do it at the gym.
I have to push myself to do it more. Otherwise, yeah. But so talk a little bit about your experience with She Loves Me, this marvelous revival. I mean, She Loves Me. We all love She Loves Me, I'm sure. For a show that never was a huge financial hit, it's had 2 Broadway and 2 West End revivals in addition to the original show. And Stephen, you were heavily involved in the last one, which was televised, a beautiful show. How did that all come about?
It was funny, because I think one of my first Broadway callbacks way back in '93, when I weighed even less than this when I was dancing, was for that company in '93. So I grew up knowing it from the PBS broadcast. Long story short, I was directing a short film that an old friend, Jim Newman, was doing for me. So Jim was doing a cameo, and I had been trying to catch up with Scott Ellis, and Jim was like, "Oh, you guys should get together," because he's doing film and TV and all this. So finally, Scott and I got together to talk about film and TV and other things, and we started to talk about shows that I had seen his productions and then I had directed regionally. And She Loves Me was his production. I loved. I grew up with it. I grew up with the BBC production. I grew up with his production, and I had directed a bare bones production for Pace somewhere. I guess it was 2010. So we started talking about that, and you know, we talked about the revival, and he asked if I'd be interested in associate. And sort of months went by, and I got a call. I was directing something somewhere. I remember in the summer, I got a call saying, "Call him back," and he said, "I want you to do this." And it was really wonderful because, you know, 2/3, bless them, of the original creative team, Joe Masteroff and Sheldon Harnick, were working with us. You know, we lost Jerry Bach, but it was wonderful to hear the intentions, to have them in at any moment when we needed to say, what is this about? And, you know, Scott's vision and his clarity, you know, for David Rockwell's set that was gorgeous, and his clarity that he didn't want to do what he did in 93. He wanted to tackle it in 2016. He wanted to tackle it with the people that were coming in who were so wonderful. He'd worked with Jane Krakowski and her personality, and Laura Benanti and her wonderful talent and wit and wisdom, all of their talents. And Zachary Levi, who came in and was so, he had done all his homework and was so excited about the show. He knew the Jimmy Stewart movie. So Scott really took the text, and we molded it around those performances. And it was such a joy because, you know, I did all the historical preparation, and in a way I sort of had to learn the behind the scenes of the 93 production, but even in prep for this. So, because he would say, I need an idea. What did I do before? No, I don't want to do that. What about this? But to be able to turn to Sheldon and have Sheldon say, you know, that lyric about my teeth ache. He said, when I was young and I saw a pretty girl, my teeth would ache. That's where that came from. You know, I can't explain it. You know, and Joe Masteroff would very clearly explain a scene, and he was 96 at the time. So, you know, we'd go get him, you know, Howard Marin, his sort of full-time assistant, his right arm, would bring him from 57th Street over to Studio 54. You know, Joe would sit down, he'd watch a scene, or I'd call him and ask questions. And it was just amazing how much they loved the piece and how much they wanted it to succeed and bring their hearts to it. Even now, and they didn't treat it like something they did in, you know, in the 60s. They treated it like it was a living, breathing show. Wonderful. And Sheldon brought us new lyrics in the middle of tech. When I called him, I said, it's too cold. It's too cold, stay home. He brought in new lyrics for a choral vamp when George gets fired. He said, this has been bothering me for 50 years. Let's fix this. So it was a joy. It was a joy.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. I had the privilege of just fleetingly working with Sheldon and Joe Masteroff, and it's thrilling to hear this because it's such a beloved show. It's just about perfect, and that theater people keep reviving it, even though it's never going to make a lot of money. I don't know why it doesn't, because it's just about perfect, but we love it so much, and now it's preserved on videotape for us to see your production all the time. So that's
I believe Broadway HD, when they got involved with the first live stream production all over the world, I got emails from friends in Italy and I believe France, and you know, they did a 10-camera shoot and it was live. We did two dress shoots sort of during the week, and it was so wonderful to see what was going on Broadway live all over the world with close-ups. And, you know, it did a whole movie theater run with Fathom Events and PBS. It's been such a gift. It keeps on giving. It came around again this year on great performances.
Yeah. Well, we and right now we need it more than ever. So it's thank goodness. I think of all the shows that I've done regionally where they couldn't work out a way of filming it. And had we had the foresight to be able to do that, we would have been a lot more in touch. But maybe we've learned a lot of things from this pandemic. So, Philip, now the title song from the album, "Will He Like Me?" So this album is what you would call a concept album wouldn't you say? I mean, it tells a story.
Yeah. Yes.
You grabbed from so much wonderful, lesser known theater songs and
Yes. Well,
woven them into an amazing story. The orchestrations are all of a piece. How did that all happen?
well, go back a little bit. In 2013, I was doing a Dorothy Fields, the lyrics of Dorothy Fields, and there's a song on it called "Remind Me," and it's written for a woman, and I performed it, I did it, but I wrote Sondheim, who's a big Dorothy Fields, loves Dorothy Fields lyrics, and I said, can you help me? Can you help me write change the lyrics to a male version? And he gave me a couple of things, and at the very end of the email, he wrote, "It is 2013, just sing the lyrics." So I was like, okay, so I sang the song, and that just got my mind going about all these other songs I've always wanted to sing, but you'd have to change it to to a woman, that kind of thing. And I was just like, well, let's stick to Steve's idea and just sing the song as written. And there was a couple of songs. It was Marriage Equality just happened. And so, I mean, the chance to sing When I Marry Mr. Snow, now I could sing it. Those kind of things. So that kind of happened. And I was sort of working on it as a one-man show kind of thing. And we were coming up with ideas. And then I was down in Florida, and we were getting ready to go to Bristol to do a summer musicale. And Tommy was like, well, why don't we go into the recording studio and just put down 6 songs and, see how it goes. And so we got John Baxadine to do the orchestrations for us. And usually when we do a recording, I go to different orchestrators and just kind of say, this is, what you got. And we went to John, and John, I just said, this is how many instruments you have. These are the instruments I want. These are the songs. Just go and figure out what to do. And he just put it all together. And Tommy helped, putting vignettes of songs beforehand. So you got a little, so they kind of blend together. So I can't, my mind's going right now, but
No, you actually, I was going to bring that up. Last week on the show for our intermission feature, we played that wonderful song that was in the TV version, but eventually got cut out of the stage version of Ballroom, Who Gave You Permission? And when we began to play the clip, when we were putting the clips together, I thought, oh, wait a minute, did I get the wrong one? Because there's that beautiful melody of Mr. Snow as you begin the song, and it's all woven together so beautifully and tells the story. I hope you do the one-man show, because it's so theatrical.
I'm waiting for it to be, to be able to go into a theater. But yes, we're working on it. So, but that was the whole idea. We just wanted to do a song, sort of a song cycle. I mean, I grew up, a classically trained musician, singer, so doing those song cycles, and that's sort of what we kind of came up with.
Well, I'm thinking now about how shows evolve and have changed over the years. Jimmy, you did one on Broadway that it probably, I mean, we talk about a show like Wish You Were Here or Camelot being changed even after the opening. And of course, shows changing when they're out of town or in previews, but nothing quite like what went on with the Scarlet Pimpernel. And you did both versions, right?
I did. Well, there are actually more than 2 versions. The very first version I was not in. That was about the first 10 months of the show. I joined it with version 2.0. We used to call them 2.0, 3.0, 3.5 and stuff like that. I did the version 2.0 at the Minskoff. I swung, I was the swing. So I covered 11 guys in that show, 4 principals, and the rest were ensemble slots. It was the most exhilarating job. It frightened me to death to actually take that job, because I said, how am I going to learn all this? I'd never done anything. I've been an understudy before, but not somebody that covered so much like that. It wound up being a great experience. Because they gave myself the idea in my head that if I really was unhappy doing it, I'm an adult, I would just leave. Well, I never left. I never wanted to leave. I had so much fun. I was on at least 4 or 5 times a week. Sometimes I would show up, and I would find out when I showed up that I was on and for whom. It was great. Then we did that for about 9 months, somewhere around 9 months, when they decided that we were going to shut down for a short period of time. It was not the full 6 weeks or anything like that. We were going to revamp the show to fit in the Neil Simon Theater, but we would go out in like one of those big stock tour type things first. We'd retech the show, new cast, et cetera, and so forth. And that's when the axe dropped, or the guillotine dropped, I should say, on about 16 people that were in the show. 16 people lost their jobs. Now, about 8 of them, their tracks were taken out of the show. And then the others were asked to leave, and then they were recast with other people. I was asked to stay on. They could have let me go too, but they didn't, thank God. And we went from there. It was quite an experience. There was a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of tough times for certain people. But we moved forward with Carolee Carmelo took over the leading lady, and Ron Bulmer was our leading man. We did that, and then we closed shortly after Christmas, around New Year's that following year. Then it went out on the road, and I did not go out on the road, the national tour of it, for the first 6 months. Then I joined it playing one of the principal parts that I covered. And I did that for about 6 to 8 months, and that was called, I believe, version 4.0. So yeah, it was quite an experience.
It's unlike a journey that any other show has had, you're.
Well, I was reminded by reading something on Facebook the other day that somebody posted that was in the infamous Annie firing from 1979. Do you recall those stories? And it made me think of what we went through with between version 2 and version 3 of Scarlet Pimpernel, because so many people were, let go for reasons that still I don't quite fathom. So, it's an odd sort of thing.
Well, so Stephen, when you hear stories like that, you're glad you're not performing anymore. What inspired you? Did you always want to be a director, choreographer, or did you segue?
I think somewhere inside I knew, but it wasn't sort of logical, because to me, directors and choreographers were sort of high up here. I saw Dreamgirls on Broadway. I think I was 11 or 12, and it was like seeing the Beatles for me, because I didn't understand how he did what he did. Michael Bennett did what he did. I just knew I needed to see it again. But I would get jobs where I could really observe. My first job was sort of as an usher and doing anything I could for the last year of Little Shop of Horrors. So I got to watch rehearsals and got to watch replacements go in. And then sort of as I was performing, I was always sort of assisting or associate or ASM or dance captain. I was the actor that was sitting by the stage manager just watching things, sort of evolve. And it was Chorus Line. I did a lot of associate work on Chorus Line for tours. I did a non-act bustin' truck with Dennis Jones was in it and Amy Spanger, and we were all sort of baby starting out. And after that, people would say, "Hey, I can't do this show. Would you think you could take it over?" And I sort of started directing reviews, then musicals, and then back to plays, which is what I trained in. But it made sense as I was performing, and sort of made the segue, because I was having interviews with artistic directors that I was auditioning for, and somewhere in the callback or in the audition, my mind would go, "Oh, I hope this doesn't mess up what we talked about yesterday. I really was interested in that." So I think it was 2002. I froze my equity card and hung up the dance belt and went went fully on. But Yeah, doing West Side Story with Alan Johnson, I would ask him every question about, where everything came from, and doing Chorus Line with Mitzi Hamilton and Carrie Casterly and knowing Bjork, I would ask anything I possibly could, and they let me hear tapes of Michael Bennett directing 4 and 5 people in the same role, and I did go back and study a little more, but I realized what I loved was working on new works and bringing things alive, and somehow it was a natural progression. There was never like one day that I was like, I'm done.
I wouldn't have thought, because it sounds very similar. You talked about that your training was more in plays, and because you could sing and dance, you did musicals, but
sort of did it all, yeah.
But obviously, your approach to the musicals it comes from a strong straight play background, if you will, and that's kind of where I'm coming from too. So it's nice to hear that. Not to take anything away from them, but a lot of musical theater directors now come from a choreography standpoint first. And the shows are beautifully staged, but sometimes we lose a little, especially in a short rehearsal period. It's so difficult when you don't have time to get under the book. And
for me, it was all came from acting. So I love director choreographers that were about the acting. As a performer, I never understood why, and I always had to justify to find a way, but I never understood, unless I was doing a Vita with Larry Fuller where we knew who we were and what we were in the circumstances. I didn't know why, if he was the most happy fellow, we would fall out of trees and be so happy every 10 seconds. And I had to justify that. So that's where my head was, always figuring out more.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you have to get the ensemble people to behave like characters. And when they sing, who are you saying that to? Let's toss the ball back and forth. And it's a fun exercise I've found when I'm working with ensemble people who have never thought of that before. It adds a specificity and a weight to a choral number. It just.
Somebody sort of summed it up. We got into a discussion and we talked about working on musicals, and I was directing Camelot, and they said, the way you believe that there's a king is if you believe everyone in the kingdom. And I went, it was like a light went off. And I'm going to stick with that.
Interesting. Well, it's just fun to know people and then find out how they got where they are. I know, Philip, you shared, you started out as with Ray Conniff. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that I know that can say that. I think we were talking in the kitchen of the housing at BRT, and you told me all about that. You came from a classical singing background, and then?
Well, I grew up in Louisiana, and I went to LSU, and I knew when I graduated from college, I had to get out of Louisiana. And a friend of mine, they were going to California, and everybody's like, why did you go to California instead of New York? And I was like, well, because the car I got into was going to California. So I wound up in California. Ray Conniff used to live in California. And I was there for many years, and somebody that was in Ray Conniff couldn't go on tour, and so he submitted my name to Ray. I went to the audition. It was there was probably about 10 of us there. I was the last one to be sung, and he gave us this music. And it's I don't know if you know Ray Conniff. There are some words, but most of the time it's and the guy said, just listen to the way Ray talks. That's the sound he wants. So it was very sort of nasal, kind of there kind of thing. And so I went in, sang it. I had heard it 10 times, so I knew exactly what he wanted. I got the job. My sight reading's not the best. And so he gave me a stack of music and said, we're going on tour. This is what we're doing. We have a couple of rehearsals. The soprano, I was a tenor 2, soprano 1 does not like to do the song more than once because she's up in the C's and E's up there. So will you do, know your music. So I learned all my music, We went on tour. I went on tour with him for 3 years on and off. And it was, as I sang elevator music for three years.
Well,
It was down in Brazil.
what Conniff was, this is part of our history, our legacy. I guess the DNA there too is that he did an awful lot of cover albums of Broadway shows. So
my first my first tour with him, he just released a new Broadway album, and here it goes. This is my Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, 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 da 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 da. That's what's written. I sang, yeah, 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 yeah.
It's remarkable that you learned to interpret a lyric as well as you did with that.
Try memorizing that.
You have to make sense of.
I love that.
But the thing is, whatever the singers, there were 8 singers, we always imitated the orchestra. So if it was a trumpet, it was a dat dat, and if it was a clarinet, it was the yans. It was, so you sort of knew what instrument you were kind of doubling, that kind of thing. But the hardest part, as I said, was memorizing it. Just a stack of music of all these things, but there were no words, just yans. And Ray would come up to you during this song and go, that's more of a dat there. You gotta, go there, dat. Not yet. Like, oh gosh. But it was terrifying but fun.
Well, I mean, you certainly took the right car and got out of and it's been going forward ever since. That's great to hear. Jimmy, when Philip was talking about his roots, I don't know that we ever really discussed this. We've known each other for a long time, but I think we both grew up sort of in the same suburban area outside.
Kind of, yes.
And we probably knew a lot of the same people. I know we're maybe a few years apart in school, but I have a feeling if we delved into that,
Well, I'm not sure exactly because, well, you grew up in Clifton, right?
Yeah.
And I was born in Paterson, New Jersey, but I grew up in Hawthorne, New Jersey. And I went to school at Montclair State. It was Montclair State College back when I went there. It's Montclair State University now, which is a wonderful theater program. And so, I spent all my formative years there, living only 12 miles outside of the city. So when I was in high school and in college and stuff like that, one of the great treats was that we were so close that my brother and I, my twin brother Martin and I, could easily hop a bus and come in and see some of the great Broadway shows back in those days, like Merman and Dolly and Paul Lipson in Fiddler on the Roof, where when I saw it at 17 years old, guess who was playing Muddle the Tailor, a man that's my husband today. But of course, I didn't know him when I was 17 years old. We met many years later. But as far as our connection is concerned, it's probably because of schooling and things like that. We didn't really connect at all until we met in New York.
It's kind of amazing and I was going to ask you about Martin. You're the, I guess Gene Lehman, our dear Gene Lehman.
Yes, Gene Lehman has a twin.
Yes, forms, but not quite in the same way that you and Martin do. I mean, you're in the same arena. You're in the same.
We live in the same building.
I saw you both in a film once at a SAG screening, sitting together on a bench. And it was kind of for people that didn't know who you were.
That movie was called Paterson, which is I think we got that gig because we let the director know we were born in Paterson, New Jersey. It was like glorified extra work actually, but we got so much play because we were in the trailer, and so many people commented, "Oh, we saw you in the Paterson." I still haven't seen the film.
Well, I have to say you're absolutely right. We were very lucky to be commuting distance from.
Oh man, the shows we saw.
I saw a show for the first time when I was 2.5 years old, and I was in trouble because you take a kid to the theater at 2.5, you expect them to ever do anything else with their lives, you're stuck. So
That was your mother's fault.
yeah, well, it was my grandmother actually.
Oh,
She
your grandmother.
The Sound of Music with Mary Martin, and
Oh,
I sat front row center of the orchestra. And, years later, I worked with Theodore McCall as my father, and he was up there. I can still see, and people used to say, how can you remember that at that age? Well, I could remember those Von Trapp kids, and I could remember Mary Martin sitting on that log in the beginning of the show singing The Sound of Music. And it was so I got very confused at a very early age about nuns and musical theater and anybody named Mary Martin who happened to appear in drag every year as Peter Pan. So, it was inevitable. Yeah, I
always
kind of stuck.
I always say that Mary Martin's the one that lost my accent. When I lived in Los Angeles, I went to an audition in Palm Springs for Mary. She had like a scholarship thing, and I sang for her. I left the room. Well, before I left the room, she said, "Honey, you have a lovely voice, but you've got to lose that accent." And so, and I came back and I knocked on the door and I just said, what do I do? How do I do this? And she gave me a list of names of people to go to. And as I always say, Mary Martin is the reason I lost my accent.
Oh. Well, she's the one I lost my theater virginity to, but I don't have anything to compare with that. I am an inveterate, forever and always Mary Martin fan, and I think if I've only seen video clips of it, but I know this is sacrilege to say this, but she probably would have been my favorite Dolly had I seen her in person. And she really had it all going on. I mean, I used to say, well, she and Ethel Merman were the two first ladies of the musical theater of that era, and she played so many of the roles that Ethel played. Down to recordings of Anything Goes, and of course Dolly and Annie Get Your Gun, and she was very different. But I can't imagine it going the other way. I think about the possibility of seeing Ethel Merman as Maria von Trapp, or
I love that.
Or in
Peter Pan.
Oh my God.
Song for that matter, So I mean, we all love Ethel Merman, but I just think Mary Martin was probably one of the most versatile musical theater. There is actually, I have to recommend this if you can find it on YouTube. She did a television version. I know she did it on stage as well. She played Sabina in Skin of Our Teeth. And she's brilliant. It's a black and white kinescope, I think, but if you can find it on YouTube, she's wonderful. She's got all the layers, and she's very funny and very sexy. And it's Mary Martin, believe it or not. So I recommend it. If you hunt and peck around YouTube, you find these things sometimes. What I'm not finding. During this pandemic, I've read more books and watched more television, and so I don't know what you guys have been doing. I know Stephen's been exercising and dieting and doing all these wonderful things,
and reading and listening and learning.
Well, I've been doing this, which has been great because we started just as something to keep busy and keep people in touch, but I look forward to Sunday afternoons because I get to spend it with 3 friends at least, and I forget that we're involved with what we're involved with right now. So it's that's my commercial for today. we're getting sort of close to when we take our little intermission, and I have a surprise for Jimmy, because the song that we're going to play is from a cast album from a show that you did off Broadway. And I know you're just one of many very distinctive voices, but it's somehow, I thought, in keeping with Philip's wonderful concept album about a gay man's journey through love and a love affair, and with Will He Like Me, that this might be also fitting with the theme. And it was a show you did off Broadway called Troll.
Oh no!
And
Oh my God!
same cachet as having done Camelot and Singing in the Rain, Scarlet Pimpernel
Oh.
Broadway tour. But yeah, tell us about that experience.
Well, it was 2005, I believe, and I remember there being an audition for this thing called Trolls, and I desperately needed a job for health insurance reasons. And I read the cast list, and I went, well, it's all these guys who are supposed to be older gay men that are basically trolls. You know, we all know what that means. But they did, the way they described the characters, there was one character that was the character of Michael, who was the most normal, that was in quotation, of the other ones who were much more flamboyant or this and that and the other thing. So I said, well, I need a job. So I went and I auditioned for this thing. And I sang Nina from Argentina for my audition piece, Olé. And I always get a job with that Olé. So at the end of it, and I was hired. It was kind of a bit of a vanity sort of production. It was directed by the guy who had directed it in San Diego, and then he was let go, and they made some cast changes and stuff like that. Ultimately, one of the characters that was changed was one of the main characters of the piece was replaced by wonderful Mark Baker. And I have a funny feeling that that's the song you're going to play. Is if you're going to.
Well, no, I think the whole cast was involved with this song.
Okay.
You know, it's a tribute to old Hollywood, or.
Oh yeah. Well, there was, Barry McNabb, right? Everybody knows Barry McNabb. So Barry McNabb played kind of a trans character, and I say that because he really more looked like a drag queen, not a real trans person. But he was very, very good. But there was a whole section where we had to like do some sort of a disco sort of, because we're all from like the 70s and stuff like that. A disco sort of number, and I got to do like Saturday Night Live disco with Barry McNabb. He was my dance partner.
Well,
it was a lot of fun.
So he was. You danced with another man before you were married to me. On this.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. Well, no. You mentioned Mark Baker. I did several shows with him years ago, and he was an adorable, talented, brilliant.
So talented.
Yeah.
So talented. Funny.
Kind of randomly, and when for those of you who don't know, he passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
Incredibly, but he had a remarkable career. He was Candide in the revival of Candide for Hal Prince, and he played the Michael Jeter role in the tour of Grand Hotel.
Grand Hotel.
I believe he got an Emmy for his first time, or at least a nomination for his first featured role on television. He made his first film with Ken Russell. He had an amazing early career, and then he became what we all become: lunch pail actors. We get up and we do things. But he and I opened a theater in Cumberland, Maryland, which was his hometown, and we did 3 shows in Rep, and it was in an old department store building where they literally built a theater in the round in an old department store. Our dressing rooms were those little changing rooms with the flipper doors in the back where you could barely fit a mirror in, let alone your costumes. But we survived that. And then years later, he started a theater company in Cumberland, Maryland, and until he passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. But he would call me up and say the most outrageous things when Sideshow was running on Broadway. Now, you know, Mark and I didn't look anything alike, but he would call me up and say, we need to do a double club act, and we'll tie our butts together and we'll sing all these duets. And he started riffing on all of the, like, if I would leave you, or things, and do them totally straight. And for weeks, he would just call me up and think of another one and just say the title and then hang up. So that was Mark. He always made me laugh. But so anyway, we're going to get to play this clip, which is a time for us all to take a little bathroom break, or grab another Bloody Mary or cup of coffee, or what, mimosa. And Jimmy, it's a sweet song. It's a tribute to the golden age of Hollywood, as I recall. It's a feel good number. There's nothing to cringe over. And you're
remember it.
There. The normal one, as you say.
The normal one.
Before we listen to the clip, this is we have our quiz question, and I'm pretty sure you guys will know the answer to this. An Academy Award-winning actress was offered the leading role in She Loves Me before it went to Barbara Cook. She didn't do it, but later on was supposedly going to star in the film version of the movie, and that never happened. So who was this Academy Award-winning actress who could have been the original Amalia in She Loves Me? So that's for our listeners, our watchers to ponder while we listen to this clip with Jimmy Van Treuren and the cast, and Mark Baker in Trolls. Yeah. Happy birthday
To quality, to wit, to charm, to class.
Whatever happened to love?
Search me. Whatever happened to movie stars
With expensive yachts and fancy cars.
Whatever happened to the glamour we used to know? Where'd it go? Whatever happened to Broadway shows when people dressed in evening clothes?
And you could hear each singer from the very last row.
Where'd they go?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Go Ethel!
Oh, Jerry.
Whatever happened to hit parade tunes when you knew each and every song? Nowadays, when that rapping starts, it's so hard to hum along. Where are the Andrews sisters now? Have all those groups been recalled? Where have the Four Tops gone to?
Are all the crew cuts bald?
Whatever happened to radio and all those thrilling shows?
Just where did Captain Midnight go?
Only the shadow knows. Whatever happened to those big bands when we danced the whole night through? Tell Tommy Dorsey as time goes by, I'm getting sentimental over you.
So when did Victor mature? And when was Loretta not young?
When did Doris have her day? When did our flings get wrong?
Whatever happened to the way we felt when we hoped the world would bring
Happiness, great success,
huge applause, Santa Claus,
Skies of blue, laughter too.
flying high with some guy,
All sure bets, no regrets.
sexy eyes, long goodbye.
Dreams come true, I love you. One guy more to adore. What went wrong with my song? Make it clear why I'm here. Before I go, let me know. Whatever happened to everything I ever thought life could be? Whatever happened? Whatever happened? Damn it! Whatever happened to me?
I wish we heard more of Jimmy's voice on that, but I can pick it out. You know, there's nothing like a little nostalgic song like that during these times to have a different resonance. So,
I'll tell you, I barely remember that piece from that show. Isn't that funny?
surprise. The things we find, because I have everything. I sometimes I can't find them, but I go through my CDs and my LPs and my cassettes. Yes, I still have cassettes. So I'm afraid to play them because I'm afraid I put it in the machine and
You've got to digitize them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but they're getting old and brittle. Well, I guess we all are, but you know, but that's you know, that's what happens. They're my treasures. So and it's especially useful on these days. You know, I was thinking of that Fine and Dandy recording that I mentioned. This play that we did last year. Here's another connection that will maybe surprise you. The gentleman who played George Gershwin in our play about the writing of Fine and Dandy was someone that Stephen worked with in Souvenir, Jonas Cullen.
Yeah, love Jonas.
Lovely man, lovely man. So I'll get him on this show someday soon too. I'll get around to everybody. But anyway, let's answer the quiz question. Did we get anyone out there? You know, we sometimes get them after the fact, but so I don't see any answers from people. So do you guys know? I see some knowing smiles. Stephen knows. Okay.
Stephen would know.
I think I know.
But do you have the recordings?
Yes, she did a 45. Yes. Yeah. So tell us who it was.
It was Julie Andrews.
Yes.
And the recordings are gorgeous.
Is that there is a picture that someone posted a few weeks back on Facebook of Julie Andrews and Barbara Cook backstage at Eugene O'Neill during the run of She Loves Me, with Barbara in full makeup and Julie. They were poring over some program or other. It looked all very friendly. So as I heard it, Hal Prince had offered it to Julie Andrews, and she had a pending film project, which I guess may or may not have been the one that she made with. Well, no, I think it was something that eventually got canceled. But she asked for, Hal Prince if he could wait a year. And, you know, nothing certainly against Julie Andrews. She would have been brilliant. But we would have missed Barbara Cook's performance had he waited a year. And to me, that's one of the most indelibly iconic and perfect performances she ever did was Amalia, She Loves Me. Jimmy, you wanted to
Oh, well, just another quick She Loves Me story. A very, very dear friend of ours passed away this week, who was in the original She Loves Me, as well as many, many shows. And you know who I'm going to say.
Yes.
the wonderful, wonderful actress Peg Murray,
Sorry.
who was a dear friend of ours, and she was in the original Gypsy, of course, and her memoir is absolutely fascinating. I hope they get it published because it's really, really a wonderful story about her life in the theater, starting way, way back, all the way through to her old age, and she was 96 years old, and we're going to miss her a lot. But she was in She Loves Me, and she of course got the Tony Award for Cabaret, and went on and on and on. She worked for Tennessee Williams. She's had such a wonderful, wonderful career. But I was always so impressed because you can hear her in that cast album, one of those wonderful ladies that sing the Sounds Well Selling song.
Yeah.
Yeah, clear as a bell. I can always tell her voice. Also, clear as a bell in Anyone Can Whistle. She was in that, and she's in that the big rock number. She's the woman that's in that number with Angela Lansbury about the water in a rock, and you can hear her voice so clearly.
The Miracle Song, I think it's called. Yeah.
The Miracle Song. Yeah.
A new recording of that just came out. That's been in the. Philip, you probably know this. This is not on PS Classics. It's
J Records, right?
They're another wonderful label that does the same as you guys, preserving all these wonderful shows. I recorded an album for Ian Escapade for them like 7 years ago. I think the show ran 10 years ago. We're still waiting for it to come out. And this Anyone Can Whistle has been in the can, I guess you could say, for almost 20 years or something like that. And he finally got around to editing. It's wonderful. It's every note that was in the original production. If you have the time, it sounds great. With Julia McKenzie playing the Angela Lansbury role, and Maria Friedman playing Faye Apple, the part that Lee Remick originated, and so it's worth a listen. I don't mean to be giving a commercial to a rival label, but
No, there's no rivals.
You guys don't take so long at releasing the album. You get them done and you get them out, and that's great. So, speaking of which, now comes the time in the show when I always ask, what's coming up? And I know it's terrifying for all of us right now, but creative people always have some idea of what they want to do next. And I think we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So what are you working on? Philip, what are you doing?
I'm still working on Willie Like Me, trying to find, just keeping it in my voice going, that kind of thing. PS Classics wise, we have the Maury Sings Yeston CD that came out of his stuff. And also for Christmas, we're releasing All the Girls with Rebecca Luker and Sally Wilford. They did a concert, and we're adding 10 instruments, 8 more instruments, or 10 instruments, I believe. And it'll be out Christmas Day, just girl songs. It's going to be really nice.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's great to hear. And I know what it's like. I have to remind myself to vocalize, because I've actually been doing mostly straight plays the last couple of years. And you get called on to do a musical. I almost did another Man of La Mancha this year, and putting it together, which would have been big, heavy sings. They got canceled because of the pandemic. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, do I still have the chops? Should I? So I have to remind myself to get in and vocalize all the time, because things morph, things shift. Like my midsection and my top notes. So we're trying to make sure that we keep everything taut and tight. How about you, Stephen? What are you planning?
I've got a number of things. I am artistic director of Just One Step for Democracy. Arnisha Walker, who I met during Dreamgirls when she was doing Lorel on Broadway, came to me. She was inspired by Obama's speech with Graduate Together. And as artists stuck at home, we thought, what can we do to make some change right now? And we rallied together a group of really wonderful core artists, and we kind of created a schoolhouse rock, because nobody's learning civics anymore. Henry Krieger wrote us a song. You know, he gave us a song, Just One Step, that we recorded. And Broadway people, Bobby Day, Sylvia McCalla, Yvette Casson, Roger Rosen, all these people came together. Adrian Bailey, we did a little serial for Adrian Bailey, Uncle Adrian's Corner, where he explained government to you from his apartment in his own way. So I spent a lot of time doing that. We worked all the way to a live stream on Election Day. And if you look at our website or our YouTube, you'll see some great all new material with all new artists. We did some dance videos with Broadway folks from Lion King and Chicago. So I've been doing a lot of time on that. And I am also—
What's the name of the website is?
So that I got excited. It's Just One Step for Democracy.
Okay.
So Just One Step for Democracy. And beyond that, I'm developing a couple of plays. One right now is called The Virgin and Miss Davis by Jarrett Allegra and Eric Kornfeld. And Jarrett was Betty Davis's assistant for about 6 to 8 months in her 20s. So she's got extraordinary stories, and it's an extraordinary journey she has to talk about.
There's a play right there. You don't have to go further.
That's the play. We're rewriting and getting ready for some readings. And there's a passion project of mine called Letters to Montgomery Clift, which is a novel by the award-winning novelist Noella Lumet. And we've been co-writing and collaborating on the stage adaptation of that. And it's Montgomery Clift's life told in parallel with a boy who has been sent to the U.S. during the Marcos regime in the Philippines. His father's a journalist who's been abducted and beaten and disappears. So it's very timely with sort of what's happening now, but this boy finds his moral compass in Montgomery Clift and in his movies and sort of falls in love, you know, this 8-year-old boy. So it's an extraordinary story.
Such an original idea. It's no, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Noelle's won some novels. I'm working with Larry Hochman and his daughter Lori on a project, Perfect Life. So it's been busy. And the last thing I'm doing is I'm working on the Witness Project for the UJA, bringing Holocaust survivors and high school students who are roughly their age together to keep telling their stories in a theatrical, and we're doing it in a filmic way now thanks to COVID. I'm working with Yishai Gross, who did the movie Paperclips. So it's been full. It's been quarantined yet full. So I'm thankful.
And doing these things virtually, we're developing skills that will go way beyond the pandemic. I have said this many times on this program that I was terrified of doing video auditions, and now I toss them off. And a few weeks ago, I was involved. I actually, against all odds, had a 4-week equity contract doing a play on Zoom that they captured. And while the result was not what it would have been had we been able to be in a theater, it was kind of remarkable to see how they put it all together. None of us were in the same city. I was in New York. There was one other actor who was in the Bronx, but other than that, there was one actor in Utah, several in Georgia, and one young actor in Kenya. So just to coordinate being able to rehearse at the same time was almost unheard of. This poor young man who was in Kenya was rehearsing with us at 4 o'clock in the morning, but somehow they put it all together. I looked at it and I thought, who are you talking to, David? Because I didn't know where any of the actors were. And then they put it all together like this, and it came off somehow, and it was a worthy project. So I'm glad that I could be involved with it. And Jimmy, I know it's a terrible thing to ask any actor at any time, what are you doing next? But
I don't want to follow Stephen.
I know. It's
Stephen's really busy, and Philip's really busy. I've been very busy dealing with my new midsection here, I think. Been working very hard doing nothing, really. I've been doing too much baking, too much sourdough baking, too much pastry baking, but I've taught myself a lot about cooking, which is really, what I've been working on are kind of things that aren't really theater related. It's more like, life quality things like cooking and projects and things like that. I tried to vocalize the other day thinking, I better start thinking about this someday because I haven't really sung in 6 months or more, And I started singing, and I went, well, that's not so bad. And then the little bit further I got into my lesson, I really started sounding terrible because my voice just didn't have the stamina and the strength anymore to get through like a good hour session of just doing some of the basics, you know. So I wasn't too discouraged by that, though, because I know that if I go back to it every time that this happens in the past, whenever I've taken a hiatus, it's always kind of really bad the first day. The second day it gets a little stronger, and eventually the voice will come back. Now, at my age right now, I'm turned 68 today. I'm just hoping I did the right thing by giving myself a vacation for a while, but we'll see.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, we were listening around the tree the other night to some, as is appropriate this time of year, to some Christmas music by Rosemary Clooney. And I think the first album we played, she probably recorded it in the 50s. And while the voice was lovely and it's everything we always thought about Rosemary Clooney, the one that she recorded maybe in the 80s, right before she passed away, didn't have as much voice, but had so much more in terms of interpretation and warmth and just everything that comes with experience and maturity. And I preferred that one. So, and look at somebody like Marilyn May. She's what, 96 now, or am I wrong about that? And she's waiting to come back. We just adore her, and we, you know, I can't wait until we can get out and see her in person again. But so she's, listen. We have nothing but the future ahead of us.
That's right.
So we've got to plan for it and work at it. And I think if you're doing life choices at any age, whatever you go back and act or sing is going to be affected positively by that. And you look wonderful, and you're still my favorite husband. We did La Cage together, and I had done it several times before, and I never got to play opposite Jimmy, and I almost didn't in that production, but we don't need to go into that. But eventually, we got to do it together, and it wasn't the strongest production I've ever done, but you and I had a great.
Well, that's the best part of the production for me was our work together, and with the boy. Zach was a wonderful young man, and the scene work in that show is really what is the glue. I mean, like, there's all the glitz and all the wonderful music and all that kind of stuff, but the grounding, the play that's there is what makes it a joy. I've always enjoyed. I've done it a few times, and I've done, like other roles I've done a few times, and I always love to revisit a show because of the fact that you're working with different people, and that they inform your performance in such a new way. So I've always enjoyed it, and that was the last time I played that part, and it's probably my favorite, mainly because of the connection I had with you.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing, because we were able to get more, I think, nuance and more laughs, more heart, more of a connection than I ever had before. And it's taken nothing away from the other two actors that I did it with, because those were wonderful memories too. But the first time I did it, we had the original costumes, we had all of the things. We didn't have the track record that you and I had when we worked together, and that was very special. And maybe we'll get to do it again somewhere.
Yeah, I would love to. It's still a part that I could probably still play, and it would be lovely to do that, you know.
Yeah, well, you never say never. I 2 years ago, I went back and did El Gallo again, and I thought, if anybody, are you sure? You know, I'm a few years older than I was on Sullivan Street when we closed. But
years ago, in like 1980, I did a production of Carousel with John Raitt. He was 65 years old with an arthritic hip, and he was great. He was great. I could
Well,
go on
you
lots
know-
of stories about that, but we're almost at the end of our
Well,
time.
he certainly had the right. It was his role.
Oh God! And the stories he told about that original production, it was just wonderful experience.
Well, Carol Channing did it when she went back and played Lorelei Lee, but they added a flashback and renamed the show Lorelei so she could look back on her life and got a lot more mileage out of it. I can't say that I have the same right as she had with Lorelei Lee or John Raitt had with Billy Bigelow for El Gallo, but I did have a little history with it, a little cachet of having closed it downtown. So I guess, they forgave me a little bit, but there's life in the old guy yet. So
Yeah.
well, I wanted to thank you guys for sharing this time with me. I want to remind our viewers that we don't raise money here on Beyond the Green Room. This is just what we do for love. But please look for Philip's ventures with PS Classics and all of these wonderful projects that Stephen is coming up on. And I'm hoping to go back to do a play in Florida that was postponed last year, where I'll be playing Albert Einstein, believe it or not. So I know it's a stretch, but this is what we're trying to do. We see so many theaters closing, and as a result of this pandemic, and we're all hanging in there and knowing that there will be a future for theater. So what the viewers can do, in addition to supporting our work, is give to the Actors Fund, because this time of year, especially, it's difficult with no money coming in and people losing health insurance, and so if you've got some shekels this time of year, I know it's hard. Think about giving to the Actors Fund, because they take care of so many people in the performing arts. And I also want to say something that I have not yet said on Beyond the Green Room. I've been getting my wonderful guests out of my own virtual Rolodex here on the computer. But if there are theater professionals out there who would like to be on our panel someday, I would like to extend the invitation. It's great fun. Guys, is it not? Did we have a good time? So you can contact me by emailing me at beyondthegreenroom, all one word, beyondthegreenroom@gmail.com. And just tell me who you are if I don't know you already. And I probably do, even if I've not met you. And, tell me what works. We do this every Sunday, and I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. So please drop me a line and we'll have some fun. Brunch time theater chat on Sunday, beyondthegreenroom@gmail.com. So I thank you all for joining me today. We're going to have a little play out music that is, again, from She Loves Me, but this time it'll be from the cast recording that Stephen was involved with. And it's very appropriate for this time of year and for playing off on Beyond the Green Room. So we'll see you next week. We have our guest next week will be lyricists Michael Colby, performer Terry Kelly, and director Gary John LaRosa, who I know you know, Jimmy, and I'm sure you know Stephen. So
that's a great panel.
Well, as great as you guys were. So thank you. Happy holidays, and I hope to see you in person very, very soon.
You too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jimmy.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to Martin too.
And to Martin too.
Right. That's right.
He'll be here for dinner.